I'm your host, George McCullough, coming at you from Greggstown, New Jersey. This is a podcast for sovereign people, and we're back again with Michelle Mockers, artist, activist, and philosopher. Right up front, I want to say, folks, that we're not going to be doing a show next week. It's Labor Day. We're going to take off and we're going to celebrate labor. Right, Michelle?
Yes, dear.
But you're coming over anyway.
Yes, of course.
For relaxation.
Of course.
So last week, we left off, we were talking about the number 4 general rules, complete education for everybody. But Michelle, you wanted to add a little addendum to last week's episode.
Yeah, because what is education, in fact? When you look at the history, let's say since the Middle Ages, if you want, even before the Middle Ages, when we started to develop, who developed, technically speaking, was in modern times the Occident, you know, what we are today, all the use manufacturers and all that. That was the development, the Occidental development. But it was to forget that the Chinese, especially the Chinese, were way developed, very, very well developed, 10 centuries before we were developed. They were practicing oil painting under the form of lacquer since 10 centuries before the European painters started to think about oil painting. And they were so, if I can give even a detail on that, they were so preoccupied with the quality of what they were doing that painting on lacquer, the door of their studio was running with water because the water was stopping any dust to come in and to spoil their work. So that's where they were. Besides that, they were the most developed. You know, the junk, for example. There's junk, the boat, that were 300 sailors with, 150 cabins for passengers, which were basically merchants and all that. Some of the sailors were living on the boat and were cultivating herbs in their cabins. You know, and those boats were made of small parts. So if they were attacked, for example, by a big marine, those marine
pirates or
whatever it is, we would destroy one of those. The boat would not suffer at all. They would just replace it. And there were boats with foremast, able to go against the wind, with a central rudder. When the Europeans at that time had boats which were absolutely unable to go against the wind, and we were, just basic boats, and that was it. So they have been destroyed. They have been destroyed by the order, Genghis Khan would destroy China. Before the Middle Ages, we have exactly the same story with Rome. Rome, who was so developed, but was finally conquered by some kind of a warrior, savages guys, And today it's a little different because everybody has the atomic, we are very developed. But we Americans, we are supposedly the richest people in the world. I'm afraid that intellectually speaking, we maybe are the... Yeah, exactly. Don't laugh. We maybe are the archaic people. It's no use to have money, my dear. The most important thing to have is intelligence and knowledge. And it's what we are the most... We want to impose our way of seeing with, I should say, basically with no intelligence. We do not respect what the others are. We are just the richest, and being the richest and the most powerful, excuse me, we have the strongest army in the world, we can impose our volunteer to them. We are the new people destroying Rome or destroying the junk of the Chinese. with money, and supposedly at that time all the possible, electronics, whatever what human means, and we do nothing out of that, just to spread again the idea of war here, war there, and we cannot come out with something intelligent. We come out with conflict and nothing else.
Well, America is an empire.
Of course, it is an empire.
Is it an undefeatable empire?
Of course, that's the disease of all empires, to be undefeatable, up to the point where they collapse. But that is something else. They collapse always, always, always by lack of mind, my dear. They don't know how to direct themselves, intelligently speaking. The power take over intelligence. And that we are doing in America. We are illiterate I don't want to cite anyone, but, illiterate leaders, huh? Excuse me.
Yeah, my thoughts are that the American empire, it's not going to go out with a bang. It's going to go out with a whimper. You're going to wake up one day and it will just be gone.
Gone? Yeah. Oh, yeah. You don't know how it will be gone. We are not again anymore in the Middle Ages. And today, all possibilities, even electronic possibilities exist. So we have no idea. But at a point, it's impossible that it doesn't collapse.
Oh, it's impossible that it will collapse or won't collapse?
That it will collapse. It is impossible that it will not collapse. It will collapse.
And so what takes its place?
That's where I'm sorry to say that we should take his place.
That's what you've been working towards, right?
Yes, absolutely, my dear, because so far, even if we are talking a different civilization, they all were going according to the same, if you want, to the same ideas. And in the modern world, you are only basically two big, I'm not talking about religions, not talking about ISIS or things like that. I'm just talking about the material fact of countries. Today, how can I say that, my dear? Today, it's only so far. It looks like if it was only the money which is governing the world.
It looks like it. Yes.
It looks like it. We went to. Excuse me, but why did we go to China? Why America went to China? America was the most powerful country at the end of the World War II, basically making all the armaments for everybody. Means we had all the machine, we have all the people, we have that. No, we go to China. Why? Because it's cheaper over there. It's cheaper over there, so you can order over there. The transportation became, with those big boats, something absolutely insignificant, and you can sell less than if it was made homemade. But today we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to get out of that.
Well, didn't I read that Trump has ordered the factories to be closed in China and to come back to the United States?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen, but yeah, it is interesting. It's mind-boggling to me that they can make stuff in China and ship it, and it can go through, must be dozens of hands, everybody collecting a profit off of a product, and it's still cheaper.
Of course. But I don't know how we will recuperate from one day to the next day, recuperate all the Chinese, leaving China, and plus we have some kind of a debt vis-à-vis of China. We lasted over there for how many years using Chinese people to work make your shoes. When you look at the shoes made in China, it's because there are some armies of workers over there organized under whatever communism, to provide that to you. So I don't know exactly how all that is going to end up.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the factories won't come back to the United States until American citizens work as cheap as Chinese people.
Well, that's the idea
Isn't that capitalism?
of capitalism. That's the idea of capitalism. Capitalism concerns nothing else than money, my dear. So the most better way to make money will be the way that we will go for. It was the better way to go to China because it was way cheaper in China rather than to stay here. And by the way, today you can see that today the most of the workers in America are not anymore workers for a basic payday. They are workers for a small payday and tips. Many Americans. We are at that point. We are at that point because instead of selling your shoes for $5 more here, if they were made here, we went to China to make them for $5 less. So you have them for $5 less. But now we're in trouble. Of course we're in trouble. It was written in the beginning that we were in trouble. The first company going over there. Come on, in a completely different communist country where we are the representative of the reverse of communism.
Well, personally, I think that you can sell a pair of shoes for the same price made in America as you can made in China. The problem is that you have to take less profit, and the corporations won't.
Of course.
Won't take less profit.
Of course. It's why we are in China. It's why we went to China, my dear.
And so are the workers in China exploited?
The worker of China is a communist, my dear. And communists, they don't have any conscience. That's what Engels and Marx says. The people do not work with their conscience. They work only with the way they are living. Forget the conscience. And what is conscience? So forget the conscience. So you can, at that time in China, it was possible for the government to have the workers at that salary or that salary. That they could not discuss at all. Where here it's something different. But as you say, it's only for a question of profit. You could have made the same thing in America. It would have been maybe a little more expensive, but so what? They would have maybe take less profit or whatever, but it could have been done in America. It has not been done in America, it has been done in China. And now we're in trouble with China. Of course we're in trouble with China. They don't understand, or they understand too well.
And do you think that eventually the factories will move out of China and move to another place? Say
They
India?
already, that's not only
Vietnam?
China. That's not only China. If you look, of course, you have many things which are made in China, but you have a lot of things which are made in other islands, in other places. Everywhere where it's less expensive than here, the factories goes. They go. They go to have that for cheaper and sell you the same price, but they have more profit.
So it seems to me that exploitation of people is a byproduct of capitalism.
Absolutely.
And poverty is a byproduct of capitalism.
Of course, my dear, of course. Capitalism is very simple. Capitalism started in England in the 1670s, something like that, when that, I don't remember his name, invented the flying machine, to make the flying shuttle. He invented the flying shuttle, means the first mechanization to make, habits and things like that, move the tissues, things. Yeah. And as soon as that was invented, the people with money started to buy that to produce less expensive than the people who were everything by hand. And so up to the machine, to the steam machine. And the steam machine is 700 and few years. Huh? And the machine was expensive, and it's only the people with the money who could buy the machine. And they bought the machine, and buying the machine, they produce everything. They produce shoes, they produce shirts, they produce everything in their factory. But to keep the workers and to keep the worker at their price, which was ridiculous at that time, the worker was working sometimes up to 14, 16 hours a day, my dear. 16 hours a day.
Children, too.
14 hours a day. And yet he had to pay for, because he had done something wrong during the week. At the end, he had to pay on his salary, he had to pay cash, things like that. So, and they were living in town, built by the manufacturer, towns which were absolutely disgusting, wooden towns where people, you had example of people living six in a street, prostitution, everything. It was something absolutely terrible, and it developed. England created capitalism at that time, and the European countries, we were less. England was the richest country in the world at that time, and the European country, it was only a few months or years later, they did exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. That was the beginning of real capitalism. The money takes over, and the money takes over the people, and it is where we are today. Of course, there have been fights, and they have been obliged to pay a little more, and but it's always with fight. It's never otherwise. You have even fight which were a deadly fight, even in America. You are, with the miners, in the mines, and come on. So the money wants to have more money and give less money out. That's a very simple principle. That's capitalism.
Are workers slaves?
Yeah.
Wage slaves?
Yeah. Today they are not slave anymore, but they are slave. Because when you give a salary, for example, minimum salary, and you will make the rest of your salary on tips, that's slavery.
Yeah, and you can't get ahead. You're forced to work because you have to pay the rent.
Yeah.
You have to buy food.
Yeah.
You have to your health care.
And more people are on tips. More and more people are on tips. Means that, it's always the same thing. The money is the money. If you have the money, you can do it. If you don't have the money, you are the slave of those who have the money. Period. That's it. That has never been otherwise. You read Thomas More, written in 1700, telling the story of, Utopia, telling the rich, they have only one thing, they want to augment their richness, and they want to keep their richness, and they make laws to keep their richness, and the people can starve. It doesn't matter. That was written in 1700, before capitalism.
Yeah, I can kind of see small c capitalism, like say two fishermen fishing, and then they can who's going to sell their fish the cheapest. Then that doesn't really bother me. It's nowadays it seems like we have like monopolistic capitalism where it's just two or three major corporations and they dictate how everybody lives. All the board members on all the major corporations, they're all the same people. And it's like a mafia state.
My dear, capitalism arrive automatically at one thing. People accumulate more and more and more, and it has less and less people accumulating more and more and more. And you know very well that today it is said, it's not exact, but it is said that 1% owns the America. In fact, 10% own something like 47% of America or something like that.
Probably the world.
Means that the money, now I'm talking about America, means that the money owns America. When you look at the history of the banks, the history of the big bang of you remember 1929, the big crush? The big crush did not exist. It was produced by three bankers who made it. Three bankers who made it.
Oh yeah, it was all fake.
It was all fake, and the people died, and people committed suicide, and all that, and in 1929, all that for the money of three banks.
I'm going to make a prediction here, folks, so if bear with me, and this is for the election for 2020.
Yeah.
If the Democrats nominate a corporate Democrat, there will be economic downturn enough to get Trump out of office. If the Democrats move forward with a Tulsi Gabbard, we can only hope, or Bernie Sanders, which would be nice, the economy will tank, and then the economy will do good, so there won't be a reason to vote against Trump. That's my prediction.
Yeah, but that is a local business, yes. That's the local business that enters the whole history of capitalism in the world. In fact, capitalism, we'll say, when officially capitalism was created in England in the 17th century, end of the 17th century, beginning of the 18th century. Since that, it didn't change at all, and you can say what you want. The Democrat elected or the Republican elected, that will change nothing to the fact that America is owned by only few people.
Well, here's a good example of how the capitalism is extremely destructive. These fires going on in Brazil, you're familiar with it?
Yeah, no,
they're all being started by cattle farmers. And to tell you the truth, I don't really hear people who are into climate change even talking about how bad these fires are going on in Brazil.
You know, the world is upside down. You talk about Brazil and the farmers, and you know that the basic, let's say, American people consume about 57 pounds of beef a year. Means that some consume more and some consume not at all consume beef. Huh? But you imagine the number of cows that are necessary to produce that. Means that even the forests today are destroyed to make corn. To have the cow and to have the meat, and that also forget that the cows are producing a very deadly. You know, when they re-mature all what they produce a gas which is even more dangerous than the automobile gas. Yeah,
you should see me after I have
and compete with the automobiles. Come on. So, but who is talking about that?
I've heard that before about cow farts, but I don't.
No. That's not that, George.
Out of their breath?
No, it's not that at all. It's not that at all. That's nothing at all. That is good for the oil for the. It's when they regurgitate, they reissue what they gather during the day. That's when they produce that gas, the methyl, which is very, very dangerous.
What, methane?
Methyl, and which is very, very dangerous. And they produce that when they not the poor, forget that completely. When they do that, it's when they produce that gas. And the more cows, the more of that gas, which is as dangerous as the gas of automobile. It's an accident that it is like that, huh? But it is like that. But nobody.
So you've been around cows that do this?
Yeah, you come on. You destroy the forest to have the cows producing that.
Hard for me to believe. I mean,
no. For you to believe, go into the scientific thing, my dear. You will be absolutely convinced. There is no way otherwise. I can bring you all the numbers if you want.
Well, that brings up a thought. Can science be corrupted?
That's something else, my dear. It's not a question of science. It's a question, can you have a hamburger when you want one at wherever, McDonald's or whatever? You know, if you have 57 pounds of meat per person, but in the United States you have a lot of people who do not eat meat. So some people, instead of 57, they are 100 and whatever you want. So we have to produce, the meat for all that has to be produced, and the more people, the more producing of meat, the more of this, the more of that only for the United States. Huh? So we are destroying, my dear, the world with things like that. You know, we eat too much meat, for example.
Well, now they're going to be growing meat in laboratories.
That's 17,100 million pounds of beef. 300 million Americans in America are around about 57 pounds each. Comes to a quick calculation, 17,100 million pounds.
17,100 million pounds of meat.
This year. No, in 10 years from now, what it
Yeah,
will
but
be.
when they start growing meat in a laboratory, it should be fine.
We produce
As a Frenchman, would you ever eat lab-grown meat?
no, no. No, plus I don't eat meat every day, my dear. It's crazy to eat meat every day. If everybody eats meats every day, we say that. We are insane in many ways. You know, you go in one of those wonderful boats to go around the world, you know, to do that. They're the most polluters things in the world, those boats. They pollute by all means. But we pollute by absolutely all means. The automobiles, we produce by all means with automobiles. But we build bigger and bigger and more cars all the time. So what? Nobody, my dear, nobody of the government is talking about the future. Nobody is talking about the future, that type of future, no more than anybody is talking about the electronic future. You are talking about the money, the people with the money, and we are talking since a while the 1% that owns the world. The 1% will own what? The electronic eye. Beside that, they will own the artificial intelligence. The day the people with money own the artificial intelligence, you're doomed. You are absolutely doomed for the rest of the planet, my dear, because they will possess all the informations, they will possess all the TV, they will possess absolutely everything, and all your kids will have that since they are born. They will have those ideas in their head. That's the end. That's the end of the freedom of man.
And what is the point of doing that?
Money.
It's just money?
It's just money.
I read a fact. If you made something like $2,000 an hour, right? That was your pay, $2,000 an hour, and you worked for 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. In 1776, you could start your job and you still wouldn't have earned $1 billion. So how is it that some of these tech people can earn $1 billion in a period of a few years? It's mind-boggling.
They have some connection somewhere, my dear, to do it.
Or is it just messing around with numbers?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's everything.
all that hedge fund.
It's everything. But you know, it's impossible, and no one who is talking on the government to be elected, who is talking about too much cows, or who is talking about too much money. Nobody is talking about that. Nobody is talking about the electronic eyes, you know, no artificial, intelligence. Nobody is talking about all that. Nobody, because they are in, so they don't want to talk about that, and they will not talk about that, my dear. And humanity is going from the guy in the cavern putting his hand on the wall to draw his hand to what we are today. In other words, we are not improving humanity. We are destroying humanity. Humanity destroys itself by its own means. We created artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is expensive, and you will not have it. You will have a little thing about it, but you will not have the main artificial intelligence.
Well, I don't know if I want it. I don't know if I want it.
But my dear, some will. And once more, when they will own all that. They will own you. You will not be able to do that. Because they will govern you. They will tell you what you can do, what you cannot do.
And how do you stop them?
You must stop that, my dear. You must stop that. I come back to what I'm trying to do. Means that, I'd say the dialectic of the art. The dialectic of the art is to make a painting. And a painting, if I can be a little,
Painting would be society.
Painting would be society. And if you paint on the wall above the painting, or on the wall above the painting, too much, not enough. In other words, any society coming in the future must limit the possibilities of money. Absolutely. Otherwise, if you do not limit the possibilities of money, forget it. I do not say that people must be at the same level. People, there are a lot of different intelligence, and the proper of man is to develop its intelligence and to develop its personality, and that should not be stopped. What can be stopped is that you make too much or you don't make enough.
Can we get rid of money? Just not have it?
It's not question of getting. You have to have something to exchange. Call it money or call it another word. That's not the problem. The problem is that some people have too much of it, and some people don't have enough of it. Some people starve, and some people own you. So that will be stopped. It can be stopped by limiting the money that some people can have. You cannot have more than that. And more than that is in such a way that you cannot, with what is remaining, you cannot direct the world.
What would be a fair distribution?
It's not a question of distribution. You have to earn your life, my dear. It's not to distribute the money. It's not.
But how much would be too much?
I don't know. That has to be fixed. That I cannot fix that myself today with the money of today.
Well, we can't let rich people decide that.
Yeah, but we could say above that many dollars, forget it, and there is one way to do that, and the way that in fact the General de Gaulle did at the end of the war, he was not able to how to get the guy who make a lot of money with the black market during the war. So he made one thing one morning. One morning, you had to go to your bank to exchange your money for a maximum. So if you had made a lot of money during the war, the lot of money was remaining where it was. You could not have the exchange. So if you want to limit the money, change the money. That's it. To a certain limit. You cannot have more than, I don't know, I say a word like that, $1 million maximum. Let's say 1 million or 500,000, whatever. You cannot have more than that. If you have more than that, it goes back to the public, public fund. That's it. But inside of that, people must be able to develop themselves. You must be able to make some money, to make this, to have a decent life, and so and so. Otherwise, it's no use. And it's no use to have people who own you, and those people own you. But nobody is talking about that to be elected in the government. Absolutely nobody mentioned that, It's all it's all wonderful. I'm going to do this, to do that. But it's nothing. They're going to do nothing. It will be the same thing.
Well, I have hope for a couple of candidates, as I had mentioned, Tulsi and Bernie.
You are an optimist.
But it's a big system that they're
You're an optimist, my dear, because you're an optimist.
Well, I want to remain optimistic.
Yeah.
Are you optimistic?
Yeah, I am optimistic, but throwing everything away and building something else. Because every time that since America exists, that there was a third party, the Party of the People, the Party of the People, as a basic example, lasted 10 years. As the Party of the People. Then at that point they had to address the Democrats. They had to make a connection with the Democrats to get them with them, to go on. They disappeared. Of course they disappeared. Any one of you, even elected, will disappear because they are obliged to deal with all their people.
But you are generally a hopeful person.
Yes. Yes.
How do you see the future? Because it was pretty bleak there for a little while.
The future, my dear, is what I say here. Is the future has to be. If you want, we have to be limited, because if we are unlimited, that creates the abuses. We have to be unlimited. Nobody has the right to own you. Nobody has the right to own you.
So you have to limit how much money people can make. You would limit how much beef people could eat.
Can eat? That's your problem, my dear. That's your problem. If I explain to you that you are eating too much beef, and the too much beef is bad for two things, for you personally, and besides that, it's very bad for the economy.
Environment.
And the environment.
And the environment. You destroy the environment to have your beef on your plate. So isn't that to be a whole system to be revised? That's what I am proposing. Nothing else, my dear. We have to finally act like people who think intelligent. We just don't go like that. You know, capitalists go like that. I make as much money as I can. And the most fantastic thing in capitalism, the most fantastic thing, the capitalist society, if you live in capitalist society, you're always whatever, you're obliged to respect the laws of living in public, with public, offices, the electricity, whatever. You're obliged to live according to very specific laws that govern you. When you go in the street, you are limited on what you can do. That's one of the principles of capitalism, of society. The second principle of capitalism is free enterprise. What does it mean?
So the enterprise has freedom, but the individual does not.
Free enterprise. But free enterprise, what does it mean, free enterprise?
Free market.
Means that you have the legal, even if there are some ways to do it, you have the legal right to kill the competition. So, in other words, there is a basic contradiction in capitalism between the individual in society and the society as a producing society. One is exactly the reverse of the others, which is impossible. And this way we go apart. And we will go apart, because that's impossible. You cannot have two different mentality, Today, for example, you have things. I take an example, abortion. So you have one of the party which is pro and the other one which is against. We will pay, we will not pay. That is to give the government, or to make the government something that is not. The government is not neither a psychological, neither a way of living. The government is not an enterprise, a moral enterprise. The government is the government. If it is a woman which has to decide if she wants or doesn't want abortion, the government has only one thing to do, to provide in both cases, to provide the medical assistance for one of the cases. So why is a government making that right to say something like that? It is absolutely not the right of a government to do it. They do it permanently. So you can say what you want, everything is like that, and everything is wrong.
Is it all right for the church to do that?
It's the problem of the church. It's not the problem of the government. So why is the government transforming himself in church, saying pro-abortion or no pro-abortion or no abortion? Why is that? Is that because it's completely goof, my dear? Everything is taking, maybe a pharmaceutical company wants to produce this, will produce that. You don't know. You're not in the background. Today you have a whole fantastic background in the US. Okay. So that is not possible. A government is not a psychological or whatever it is, instructor, or even less a church telling you what to do.
Here's another example. You can't ride a bicycle without supposedly having a bicycle helmet on. Why? If I feel like riding a bicycle without a bicycle helmet, that should be my choice, right?
Yeah. Why is the government taking over?
Wear a seatbelt. Why do I need to wear a seatbelt when I'm driving a car? If I feel like taking the risk, that's fine.
Because they sell that, my dear.
My hunch is that the insurance companies lobby for that law, so they have to pay out less money in an accident.
Yeah, you can be sure that it all depends on money. One way or another one, all depends on money. And once more, the more we will go, the more it will depend on money. Because the more it will become electronic, it will become every day everything becomes more electronic. You are less and less and less yourself. So they will do what they want with you, absolutely, if you do not react.
Well, I know you believe in healthcare for everybody. And now, just like the abortion issue or the bicycle helmet issue, everybody is forced to buy healthcare, which I feel like is totally unconstitutional. The government shouldn't force you to buy something from a third party, whether it's good or not. I don't know. That should be my choice. If I want to go around without having health care,
My dear, I don't want to quote her I don't want to.
vaccinations too.
Yeah.
Why the hell?
Little kids.
When I was a kid, we got maybe 3, 4 vaccinations. That was it.
Yeah.
Now there's like 70 or 80.
Oh yes,
vaccinations.
absolutely.
How many vaccinations did you have when you were a little kid?
I believe I had one.
Do you remember which it was for? Or
I had one. I had in the army. I had 1 or 2 things in the army, and that was it. That was it, my dear.
Malaria
That
or
was
something
no,
like that?
absolutely not. I don't remember. But well, even today in France, you go in France today, you will go to an hospital. They will not ask you why you are coming to the hospital. They will ask you why you are coming, not if you can pay. You know, when I went, that did happen to me, where you go in, and they say, why are you coming in? Go and see Dr. So-and-so, and Dr. So-and-so, we may say, go and see Dr. So-and-so, who has the, screen, and whatever, and only when you are finished, you say, the cashier asks you, how do you pay? Social Security or yourself? I had one friend who fall and hurt his knees in France next to an hospital. You remember, he went to the hospital, they fix his knees, and they rent a room in the hotel because they said, our rooms are not nice enough for you. And he didn't pay the rent. He didn't pay the hotel. They rented. It's not in America, my dear. I have been basically thrown out of a cabinet of a doctor because I could have died in his door, without mine. That doesn't mind. I didn't have the right thing to pay, so.
I know,
So
it's
that
amazing.
is America, my dear. All that has to disappear, completely disappear.
And you can't go to school, some schools without vaccination.
right, especially, and I think Australia too. If you're not vaccinated, you don't go to school
Yeah. So all that has to disappear.
or homeschool.
Yeah.
We're running long on the time here, Michelle.
Yeah. Well.
It looks like Michelle got very animated again this week, which is nice to see.
I don't know. It depends on. I don't know on what it depends. The mind goes.
We never got to rule number 5.
What is number 5?
So we're not going to talk about it this week. So we're going to get into it next week or the following week, in next episode. Industry, collaboration instead of competition, goods made to last, respect of natural resources. We kind of covered some of that stuff, but at least it's formalized here in the plan.
Yeah.
And where can people get a copy of this document?
Yeah.
Where?
Michelle?
It's written on the back.
No pennies?
No pennies or Michel. I even give my own name.
If folks would like to read this document, it's quite fun. They can go to
You have a
no-pennies,
You have the old one. That's this one.
no-pennies.com. And your email address is?
Michel Mokers, one word, at gmail.com.
.com. And we want to hear from folks at Radio Free Will. You can always email us at info@radiofreewill. Subscribe to this podcast. There will be more episodes. We're just tapping the surface.
we do not follow exactly. Sometimes the mind goes on the right when it should go on the left, or
Hey, that's life. That's the way.
like you talk about industry. Everything you buy is to be replaced. I bought a computer, but the guy would tell me, I see you in 2 years. It's a dinosaur in 2 years. Your computer.
Yeah, I know. I hate that.
So
that
it's
much.
always like that. They sell you something that is going to last 1 year or 2 years, because they will have to sell you again the same thing.
Hey, send us your comments on something that you've bought, never lasted more than a year. I guess food, although I do have some food in our refrigerator that's lasting quite long. Anyway, that's it for today's show. Michelle, thank you again.
I'm sure that we did not follow. We went freedom free.
We went.
Radio Free Will.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
went. Anyway, join us again next week. Please subscribe. Like us if you're watching on Facebook and or not Facebook but YouTube, and join us again next time.
Yeah.